the Telusive Movie Reviews podcast. Tonight I am joined with Mr. Model Y Mike. How are you doing, Mr. Mike?
I'm doing well. How about you, Mr. Nick?
I am doing really well. You know, I got to watch a kind of fun movie today.
What movie?
It was maybe actually I don't think it was The Bad Batch. I think that's actually a TV show.
That's a good.
But
that's not
what we're talking about. We were talking about a movie that was probably not as good of a movie as Bad Batch.
Oh, jeez. Here we go again.
I know. Here we go. No, I don't hate it. Okay. What movie did we watch?
We watched the movie that's in the title of the video that you're watching if you're watching on YouTube or listening to it on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, which is X-Men Days of Future Past. Probably one of the better X-Men movies that I would say, in my opinion.
I would agree. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't wonderful. It opened up obviously with the time travel thing, and my biggest qualm with this movie is the whole time travel aspect of it, which I think most movies don't do well. Most of them do it horribly. Some of them do it really well, but most of them do it horribly. This one did it okay. So for that, I'm gonna give it a 5 out of 8. So 5 out of 8 for Nick. Not terrible, but not the best.
I'd agree with you. I'd also give it a 5 out of 8. It's not,
okay.
I think 6 out of 8 worthy in my opinion. It's not that good, but it's probably one of the most enjoyable X-Men movies, I'd say, in my opinion. Next to maybe Logan. Logan's probably one of my favorites, but I guess maybe close behind is Deadpool, which we might get to in the future. But yeah, no,
it's all downhill from here.
I love the casting in this movie. There's so many great cast members. I mean, you've got kind of the old X-Men, which Nick never really got introduced to, being Professor X, portrayed by, oh goodness, I already forgot.
Yeah, let's grab the IMDb.
Yeah, because I already forgot. It is, I'm so sorry, Patrick Stewart. Patrick Stewart plays Professor X, the old one. Ian McKellen plays Magneto, the old one. Both fantastic actors in their respective roles, whether it's being in theater or being on screen. But then you have the younger ones as well, like Michael Fassbender as Magneto and James McAvoy as Charles Xavier. Both pretty fun. What did you think, Nick, of having two different versions of the same character kind of on the screen, almost like at the same times at certain moments in the movie?
Yeah. I didn't mind it. To be honest, again, I was kind of lost there for the first 20 minutes of the movie until the plot was kind of established with the back in time deal. Because obviously I'm very new, for those of you who haven't been watching this whole series, I'm very new to the whole X-Men universe here, so Mr. Mike is giving me the kind of grand tour of all of the X-Men movies and showing them to me in an order that makes sense, just from the fact that I haven't really been too into this whole series. So, because of that, I obviously missed out on a couple of these films, which meant that I was kind of confused if I missed a kind of major time jump there. Because this movie opens up, spoilers, right, for the whole spoilers. The movie opens up with this post-apocalyptic wasteland with these, what do they call them? Centaurs?
Sentinels.
Sentinels. Whatever, same thing. The Sentinels just destroying these mutants. And I was like, I don't think I missed something. Wait, all right, where did we leave off? And I was thinking about this for a little bit too hard. I was like, well, okay, we left off with Logan and that end scene. Logan meeting up with old Professor X and old whatever Magneto. Metal dude. Magneto, thank you. I can never remember that name. And I was like, man, I guess I missed something. What is going on? And I was like, all right, well, I guess maybe I just missed 2 or 3 movies that Mike decided weren't worthy of watching. And so I was just like, okay, I guess I'll just enjoy it. And then it was like, oh, we need to go back in time and fix it. And go back to the 70s. I was like, oh, okay, this makes sense because we left off in the 50s. So this is going to pick right back up. Okay, cool. And then it all fit. And then my next thought was, oh boy, this is a time travel movie. And I kind of think when a franchise throws in time travel, it's kind of an admission that they don't have anything else to do. At least that's been my traditional experience, seeing it happen in Marvel and the Star Wars universe. It's whenever they introduce time travel, it's kind of fix plot holes from before, or to kind of redo scenes, or to build that nostalgia back. And it's just kind of like, okay, you couldn't think of anything new, so time travel, right?
I think they built it same time, well in this movie though. With you don't
definitely.
really know her. She's Kitty Pryde, at least the character's name is Kitty Pryde. She plays also in The Umbrella Academy on Netflix, which another fantastic series. I could not recommend.
Elliot
more.
Page does, or the character Kitty Pryde?
Page does.
Okay.
But she plays Kitty Pryde in this, and her powers are kind of weird because she can have phases through things, but also can phase people's minds into the past. But I think the way they framed it wasn't really a complicated manner of thinking about it necessarily. It just means that you've erased the potential future that would have happened. So if anything, you're kind of watching the false future at the very beginning, like the very, very beginning. And then you kind of get the kind of future, but then of course it gets all wiped clean at the very end. I guess spoilers.
Yeah.
Wolverine kind of saves the day with altering the course of history, which you would think the heroes wouldn't want to do that, but then I guess you see how they're kind of faced with this apocalypse where it's basically the Holocaust on steroids, but for X-Men, or I guess for mutants.
Very.
And so it's kind of warranted that the heroes have to step in and fix the future. 'Cause they can't really survive in this future with these honestly really cool techno droids that are able to adapt to any situation and then share that information. It's like FSD beta on steroids.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Go back just briefly to the beginning fight scene where we're introduced to these new mutants. At least for me, maybe they were in some other movies that I hadn't seen.
I love them.
I really liked how they kind of kept that all high paced, right? Like within the first 5 minutes, we got like a pretty decent fight scene. And what was this movie? 2014. 2014. I think the CG stood up very well. They did a good job. It looked fine. There wasn't any blaring CG things, I think, throughout the entire movie that I really noticed. So that was good on them. But I really liked the beginning fight scene. It wasn't too overdrawn, but at least I got to see some new mutant abilities. Like this teleporting girl, that's pretty cool. Just being able to open up and they're gonna punch, but then they punch themselves, and it's that's kind of cool how they've been the space-time continuum there, or the space continuum, and then the freeze guy and the fire guy, and watching the not mutants, the machines. What we just said those
Sentinels.
Names. Sentinels. Thank you. Okay. The problem that I have with that is it opened up with the Sentinels dropping from those big ships. And I was like, oh, this looks a lot like, dang it, Neo, what's that franchise?
The Matrix.
Matrix, thank you. And then they called them Sentinels, and I was like, wait a minute, what? That's what they called them in the Matrix too. Anyway, that was a little confusing, but very clever that obviously they were in a different time dimension or something.
It's the very dark version of Eve from WALL-E as well, right? Kind of in a pod-shaped form, I guess, and then once they hit the ground, or maybe they don't hit the ground, maybe they just fly down or whatever, but very much
weird humanoid thing that's really tall and fast.
And they take on different forms as well. It's not just giant scythe hands or whatever. At one point in the movie, we see one that has really sharp finger looking hands, and so I don't know. I very much enjoy how creative they got with kind of the driving force for the plot, in which you have these robots that are just basically impossible to destroy, and there's droves of them, and it's just doom, and the only way of getting out of it is having Logan, who, I don't know if you got this, somehow has his metal claws back after X-Men Wolverine.
Yes, I was kind of confused about that, but I figured I missed something. Did I miss something, or are we going to see something later?
You missed nothing. They just kind of retconned his claws back.
Okay.
I think the consensus by the internet is that Magneto gave him his some metal claws again, because he technically still has a metallic skeleton. It's just his claws were cut off by the Silver Samurai.
Interesting.
Or Yashida, I guess.
Ugh, that was a painful moment. Oh my gosh.
There's a lot of not really gore, but in that first fight scene, you said that you enjoyed it, but there's a lot of crazy stuff that happens to all the mutants at the very beginning. Like, you have Iceman, who I think gets his neck crushed and his head just slides on the ground. And then the fire guy, I think, just does he get cut in half, or is that the final scene? I forget.
I appreciated it for the same reason that you appreciate, what is that new TV show that you'll be reviewing at some point?
Oh, I don't. Well, okay, I guess I'll leak it anyways. It's Invincible.
Oh, sorry. Invincible. Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry. Anyway, like, for the same reason why the Invincible TV show is pretty good, I think it was really cool to see these mutants up against something that they can't win, right? Like, a lot of times we see these mutants as, you know, kind of the superhero type, you know, they never lose, right? Okay, it might be close call, but they always win. But, like, no, in the first 5 minutes of the movie, it was just like, bam, that person dies, bam, that person dies, bam, that person dies. And I was just like, oh! And then it was just the guy with the big blaster. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is happening? Like, I didn't know who the main character was or anything. And then, you know, turns out they weren't actually there and they're just being projected. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's kind of cool.
What did you think of the story in this one compared to the others, Nick? Did it seem like it was a little bit stronger than, I guess, Origins and Wolverine? Or First Class? It seems like First Class you liked more.
Yeah, I did like First Class quite a bit. Out of the other guys, of the other X-Men that we've watched, I don't think that this one was necessarily better than First Class. But I don't think it was too much worse. I think they're pretty close as far as the storyline. I did enjoy the fact that we did have a little bit of character development on both sides of the characters, right? We got to go from, I guess, as far as I've seen, just about the best version of Professor X that I've seen yet, and cut directly to this broken Professor X hopped up on some version of heroin that is probably not heroin, but it looks like it. At least he acts like he's you know, twitching and stuff. And it's just kind of interesting to see that whole character arc. And I do like time travel movies where they do it well and they, you know, have good, you know, have the main character have like that good conversation with the other main character from the past, like, I'm from the future, and having that whole like, wait, no one could have ever told, great Scott, I just happened to be this morning and I drew the flux capacitor, right? Like, I did appreciate that part, and that was pretty funny. So I don't know. Yeah, as far as the story, I think it was pretty good. Obviously, it's no Star Wars or Marvel movie to me, but that's just the nostalgia, I guess. How about you?
Probably one of my, like I said originally, probably one of my favorite stories. I like how they handle a bunch of the characters. I think, was it Michael Fassbender as Magneto? His story arc is pretty interesting in this, where we meet him and like immediately it's like, oh, he may have killed JFK. This isn't good.
Yeah.
And then kind of we get that one scene with him in the plane. He's like, Charles, you abandoned your people. Like, you abandoned all your friends. And then you just were very selfish. Like, come on, man. Like, I know that you're trying to play the good side, but you're doing a terrible job.
Yeah. Oof.
So, but yeah, and then you kind of get like the big scene at the end, which very, very cool visual effects of somehow being able to lift a whole entire baseball Coliseum stage or wherever, and bring it over the White House.
Yeet it over to the White House. Which, you know, that's always how movies work. They don't know anything about physics. How did Magneto control those robots at the end? I was kind of confused about that. I know that he put like the railroad metal into it, but like, how does that help? I was a little confused.
I mean, he can control metal, so technically, since he put in some very fine threads of metal through the robots, it's assumed that he can control either one, how they move, or two, I guess, I don't know, right? He can manipulate metal. His name's Magneto. Stands to reason that maybe there's some magnetic component to his powers, and he can maybe like, I'm explaining away a plot point that probably isn't that important, but maybe his magnetic powers influenced the computers and he was able to make them do specific things. But who cares at that point?
What did you think of Yeah, what did you think of Quicksilver? I think Quicksilver was probably my favorite character from this entire
movie. It was kind of a
movie.
nice surprise to see him again, I guess, for the second time for you. For many other people who watched the X-Men series, it was their first time meeting kind of Quicksilver. The original, I think, right? I don't know if Aaron Johnson's Quicksilver debuted yet, but I think this Quicksilver, which, oh goodness, Evan Peters portrays,
yes,
I think was first. 2014 versus... Yeah, because I think Avengers came out maybe 2014, maybe 2015. But yeah, I enjoy this Quicksilver a lot. I really hope Marvel tries to bring Evan Peters into the Marvel Universe, because I really enjoy how he portrays the character, both in this movie along with, I guess, in WandaVision, except in WandaVision he was kind of just fake Pietro. Yeah. In which they don't call him Pietro in this movie. I don't know if you caught that. They just call him Peter.
I know. I was kind of confused. Yeah, Peter. Okay. And I know there's like this whole like parallel timeline with Marvel and the X-Men universe. So I wasn't. I knew from all of the coverage on WandaVision that Pietro was from the X-Men, and that I should expect that. So when I saw his face, I was like, oh, cool, that's Quicksilver. Okay, cool. I'm not going to ask any questions because I'm sure it's really complicated and I don't actually want to know. But yeah, I appreciate seeing him. What I really liked about Quicksilver, though, was a lot of times, I think, especially in X-Men, they kind of have the main character or two, and then they have like all of the supporting characters, and the supporting characters always seem really underpowered in comparison to the main characters. Like Magneto and Professor X can like literally move any object mostly, or make anyone do anything, right? Or Mirage, what's the blue girl's name?
Mystique.
Mystique. Oh my gosh.
Mirage is
I'm
from
still getting the names.
Incredibles, I think.
Yeah.
And she's the...
Totally, yeah. Mirage was from the Incredibles. Yeah, but Mystique can be anyone. So like the main characters always seem like super overpowered, and then like the side characters, like who's the Summers kid who could like
Scott
shoot
Summers,
fireballs? Scott Summers. Like they're all like one note characters, right? It's like, okay, there's the main characters that have the cool powers, and then like there's the rest of the people to fill up the group. But I felt like they gave Quicksilver some good screen time. And I really enjoyed the breakout scene where he spent 2 minutes and like ran around and everyone was like in freeze time and moved the bullets and made everyone punch themselves. And like I think that scene made me think this guy should be getting more than just like a side character part in a movie, because this character is pretty interesting. I think the Flash from DC, I did watch a few seasons of the Flash back when that was cool. They never really had one of these like complete freeze frames of an entire room and just watch someone just like deck everyone. I guess with the Flash, they'd have the camera's perspective be with everyone in real time, and you just see like the yellow lines, and then everything everyone is just decked. And it's like, okay, cool. But like with this one, we got to see everything from Quicksilver's perspective and how he was just, walking around kind of this watery kind of, I don't know, kind of felt like he was walking underwater or whatever, just the way they mixed the sound and stuff.
Listening to Time in a Bottle by, I forget who the author or the artist was.
Yeah.
But fantastic song to pair with that. And, no, that's probably one of people's favorite scenes in this whole entire movie is that one.
Yeah.
Just because it's almost like a breath of fresh air, right? For kind of the normal type of X-Men type of feel that you've seen already from Origins to now. But then also there's a little bit of comedy, right? Instead of like kind of just trying to punch everyone and be done, he has a little bit of fun with it. He's running on the walls, he's moving people's hands around, he's crossing guns around so that way the guns are just flying everywhere. And then moving bullets very precisely so that they don't hit the main characters. He is very overpowered, though. It kind of stands to reason it makes sense, right? Because I don't know if you caught in the elevator scene, I think it was right before that scene. What was it? Magneto and Quicksilver are talking, and Quicksilver's like, hold on, my mom knew someone who could bend metal. And then you get Magneto kind of looking in the corner, and then his eyes or pupils kind of dilate a little bit like, oh, wait a second.
Wait, Is Quicksilver the son of Magneto?
So in the comics, yeah, Wanda Maximoff and Pietro Maximoff are kids of Magneto.
What? Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they kind of tease that with this, that at least Pietro might be, or probably is, Magneto's son.
Huh.
But they don't show Wanda at all in this. Like, they imply that she's there.
No.
They kind of maybe show, like, a little girl who's not the same age as Pietro. Or
Yeah.
Peter, I guess.
Wanda is in the X-Men universe, though, in the comics?
So that was kind of the interesting thing about these characters, right? Because I think around the same year you've got Pietro mainly featured in X-Men Days of Future Past, and then in the same year, or maybe a year before, a year after, you've got Marvel debuting both the Maximoff twins, Wanda and Pietro, in their own way. It just happened to work out that Marvel's like, we have to kill off someone, because what are the stakes in this movie if everyone lives? And so they kill off the new character, Pietro, and they just keep Wanda, which honestly wasn't a bad idea for how they developed Wanda. And this one, they just kind of don't explore Wanda at all. They're like, we'll just focus on Pietro and have him run around and be funny. But yeah, definitely a funny scene, both the elevator one and then the one right after with the slow-mo and time in a bottle.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff happens in this movie.
I was a big fan of that. Yeah, a lot of stuff really does. What about the villain? What did you think of the villain? What's the midget guy's name? What was his name?
Oh my goodness, Nick, come on.
What? What's his name?
Peter Dinklage.
What?
Peter Dinklage.
Peter Dinklage? Was that his name?
That's his name.
I thought his last name started with a T or something.
No, Peter Dinklage. D.
It's like Trash Industries or something, right?
Trask. So there's Trask. Oh, sorry, you're talking about the actual character in the movie. Yeah, he's...
Yeah.
Excuse me. Yeah, he plays Trask. Trying to find... Dr. Boulevard... Boulevard Trask.
Okay, yeah.
But no, the actor's name is Peter Dinklage. He's a pretty good actor. I
didn't know that.
All the episodes of Game of Thrones, and I think he did a good job at his portrayal of whatever. I already forget.
I've never seen him on screen before. I'm apologizing.
I forget. And then I don't know if you recognized him from Endgame, or no, it was Infinity War. He was the big giant who helps Thor make, not Ragnarok, Stormbreaker. Remember when Thor goes to make Stormbreaker?
I vaguely remember that scene, but I don't remember the character you're talking about.
There's a big giant. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. Alright, sorry. I didn't recognize this guy, so he was new to me. Sorry, I guess he's famous. That's going to happen a lot. I don't know a lot of famous people. Anyway, what did you think of the villain, Trask guy? The Trask guy. Trask. Boulevard Trask.
He's more
How's the villain in this movie?
I would say not really like... It seems like with a lot of these X-Men movies, they kind of get wrapped up in each other. Like, you get, of course, the typical Xavier versus Magneto. But he kind of serves as that connective tissue for them to fight against him. But then, of course, once they kind of defeat him, or at least get over his threat, because Magneto kind of steals the show with the Sentinels from 1960s or wherever. He ends up kind of being sidelined, and then you get mostly Magneto trying to do his own thing, and you get Mystique trying to do her own thing, and you get Professor X and Beast and Wolverine trying to stop all of this. So I don't know. I mean, he brings something to the table in this movie. I wouldn't say he's like the craziest villain necessarily. I think still Mystique and Magneto steal the spotlight, but he's a good plot development.
Do you think he was overplayed or just about right? I mean,
I think underplayed. I think they could have done more with him.
Underplayed,
but I think the issue is that I don't know. How do you do an X-Men movie without addressing Magneto, right? Or addressing Charles or Mystique? I guess you could maybe consider Mystique. But Yeah, I don't know. What did you think, Nick?
I kind of thought he was overhyped, and then like it kind of felt like a letdown at the end. I kind of feel like Professor X from the future and Magneto from the future were like, this guy is gonna kill all the mutants.
He's literally Hitler.
And then he's literally Hitler. And then we get to the past at the end of the movie in the future. Anyway, later we get to see the past, and we get to see this guy, and you know he has a few like evil grins, and you know he kind of plays the government. You know, also the Richard Nixon double was like, ooh, sorry, that's that wasn't close. You tried, but that was not close. Sorry, that was not close.
That's what you do when you're Nixon.
That's all you do. All you have to do a perfect Nixon impersonation is say, "I'm not a crook." That's all you have to do. Oh my gosh. Yeah, they had like a few little scenes built up, but I feel like I was kind of feeling a little let down because I was expecting the climactic moment to be with him being the bad guy, but instead it was Magneto, and I kind of felt like it was a little bit of bait and switch. I guess it's fine because Magneto is a pretty well-defined villain, and you know it's kind of cool that they worked together for half the movie, and then just he flipped. What was the reason why he flipped? I mean, just because he's evil? Was there like a specific reason?
He saw his moment.
Like
he's like,
he saw his moment.
I can actually do something, because he already knew that he altered the course of history when they were in France, but he knew that he could maybe do something to help both himself and maybe help Mystique later. By killing Trask and almost the president multiple times.
Yeah.
Yeah. Along with that, I would say from kind of an outsider's perspective of watching this movie, maybe the fifth time or sixth time for me, there's a couple scenes in this that I didn't really realize until we've been watching this kind of together, Nick. When Mystique goes to kind of save some of the mutants in Vietnam. A lot of those are either ones that we've seen before, or
was Summers there?
So yeah, Summers was there.
Okay.
Havoc was there.
That's the only guy I thought I might have recognized.
And then Toad has been in the X-Men movies before, but in the original trilogy.
Okay.
And then, oh goodness, there was Inc. I think. They were interesting. I don't know.
Okay.
But then there's also Stryker. Stryker's there as well. If you didn't catch a lot of the scenes, he was there both. Well, I guess you kind of notice it when Trask is about to get killed and then gets stopped. But Wolverine has his whole PTSD moment because he sees Stryker and he's like, "Oh no!" And then ends up
think calm thoughts.
Kitty. Yeah.
Yeah. Poor Kitty. Like her whole job the entire movie was to sit there and crouch over this guy for like an hour, 2.5 hours. And she got stabbed for it, and I'm like, oh, poor girl.
Would you think if like there's potential for Logan to lash out that they would have restrained him already?
Right? Like, you think
he'll be fine?
Oh no, we should restrain him. Okay, yeah, there you go. Good thing he wasn't Magneto, so they can use metal. I think that kind of sums up my general thoughts on the movie. Do you want to move into specific out-of-universe topics?
We definitely can. I did want to mention that Xavier stole the F-bomb this time. In the past few movies, it's usually Logan who's used the F-bomb.
Xavier.
Oh,
yeah. I once talked to a man, and he said, and I said something, and I'll say it to you.
He's basically referencing the scene in First Class.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, I'm just going to give you
I
your
thought that
medicine.
was kind of clever.
Yeah, there's a lot of clever moments like that.
Yeah.
Along with some very comedic moments, especially with Quicksilver, where he's trying to help someone, or like, I guess in the moment when he's trying to save Magneto from the prison, he's trying to hold his head. Magneto's like, why are you holding my head? He's like, whiplash. And Magneto's like, what? Like,
yes, what?
Whiplash.
Yes. I noticed that.
Like, the scene doesn't need to be in here. Like, it could be a typical X-Men movie where, like, wait, we want to just show off the cool powers that this guy has. Instead, it's like, no, we're gonna hold here for a bit, have Quicksilver kind of be a tad bit annoyed with like trying to explain to his old man what Whiplash is, or at least like what he's doing.
Yeah, what's gonna happen here?
Yeah. But then they also another thing that there's a whole bunch of different like filters you can kind of watch this movie in, where there's a lot of the comedy with Quicksilver. They've got some of the kind of witty scenes with Xavier or other characters, but then they've also got moments where they make you question reality itself in regards to, they mentioned that JFK was a mutant. In which you're just
they did?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't remember that. What was his power?
They didn't show it, but basically...
Did they even show a cutback scene of the murder?
I mean, I don't know if they wanted to do that, but they mentioned that there was a shooter, and Eric tried moving the bullet out of the way of the president, but it failed because someone tackled him or whatever, and basically insinuated and or said blatantly that JFK was a mutant, which is kind of interesting because then you think, okay,
interesting.
Like, who else is a mutant in this reality of the X-Men? Like, do we potentially get like a mutant President Bush? Makes sense with all the shoes that he had to dodge at some point.
I was gonna say he's kind of quick on the shoe dodging, so he might be a mutant. You never know. Yeah, I think that was. I didn't pick up on that, but I guess it makes sense there. There can be world figures. What did you think of? Dr. What's his face?
Xavier,
the famous actor. No, the shark guy. I don't want to be rude again. What was his name?
Oh, Peter Dinklage.
Trask. Yes. Sorry, I'd never heard of this actor before.
Really, he's really good. I enjoy his work.
All right, I'm gonna have to go find some other movies of him and add those to our list. What do you think about his like mutant detector? Like that kind of seemed a little plot devicey to me. It was like, by the way, here's a mutant detector. Beep 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 beep. You're a mutant. Anyway, I thought that was kind of funny.
The Paris meeting where it's just like this dude is just like, whoops, you got me. Or actually, it was more of, I think your thing is broken. He's like, no, it's never broken. Like, you're that trusting in your device that you somehow have calibrated for mutants. Okay.
Yeah, right. That was kind of funny. And I guess this kind of brings to a question, like, how does I'm still confused, and that was one of the big questions that I had on our first X-Men movie that we watched, like, how does being a mutant work? Like, is it, like, something that, like, if they could make a tracker that can find any mutant, then you'd imagine that all the mutants would have something in common, right? Like, something in common that this tracker could find. But last I checked, these mutants were made by radiation, right? Radiation exposure that mutated their genes.
Either
right?
that or just natural evolution is, I think, what Xavier was trying to bring forward in First Class, was that, hey, humanity's evolving into this. It's logical that Homo sapiens are going to go extinct and mutants are going to be everywhere. But yeah, I don't know. That is again, it's a very silly plot device of all these mutants kind of have the same X gene, I think is what they call it. And somehow Trask has tapped into it and has a detector for it, and then has put it into all the Sentinels, so that way the Sentinels know where everyone is. But then in the future, they don't really. They're kind of still trying to figure out where they all are, and you get Sentinels who are kind of like, I mean, you kind of get the scenes where you have Kitty Pryde zapping people back into the past, but it's still like it takes time. Like you would think, if they have these detectors and you have so many Sentinels, they'd be able to track down every single mutant everywhere. But instead, it's like, no, it just takes some time, right? The X-Men were hiding in China this whole time, and we didn't know. Okay.
Yeah. Well, they had to keep on the move, and that was kind of cool. What did you think of the end fight scene? I kind of really liked how it was cut between the past and the past and the future, past and the present. I don't know. When was that supposed to be taking place? Like the 2020s, or like was that in the 2090s?
I think it took place a little bit long, because you have to assume that Xavier and Magneto found Wolverine at the end of the Wolverine. What did I just say? X-Men. No, goodness. Charles and Magneto found Wolverine to recruit him to team up together to try to go against all these robots that apparently are popping up and killing mutants.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it took a year or maybe 2 years if you think about how many robots were probably deployed and or manufactured and deployed, and all the infrastructure that they built up to make concentration camps for X-Men. I'm not a mastermind at how long it takes to make an apocalypse happen in terms of or at least a Holocaust apocalypse for X-Men, but there was a lot of like destroyed cities kind of at the beginning that they're showing off, so it stands to say that it's been
a while,
maybe a decade or maybe less, maybe more.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I don't know about cutting between the two fight scenes, but I really enjoyed that last fight scene because it was kind of the ending for at least Storm, for how we would see Storm, who was
really
displayed by Halle Berry, because Halle Berry got to portray Storm in the original X-Men series, and people loved how she was portrayed, or at least there's a good positive energy with how many people liked her performance. It was nice seeing her in this now. But it was kind of the ending of her character, right? Because you see all these Sentinels come and they kill a lot of the X-Men. They even kill Magneto, basically.
Yeah.
The whole lot of shrapnel explodes and basically some of it goes into him and kills him. And you're like, whoa, they just killed Magneto, and then they killed Blink, who was the portal lady. Just like, I think it was cut together pretty well, especially some of the very funny things that they did with like Blink, where she opens a portal out in the middle of nowhere, somehow knows where the enemy is, and then you get I think his name's Bishop with his gun that's powered by someone else's power, something like that.
Yeah, someone like that. Yeah.
Really strange, but very creative. Excuse me, sorry.
Yeah, very.
Very creative, and then being able to, I guess, destroy the X-Jet, because the X-Jet's no longer an SR-71, I guess, as you can tell.
Mm-hmm.
It's now an actual, like, Quinjet looking thing.
Thankfully, it's sci-fi-ish enough where I don't have to worry about the actual realistics of this world.
They knew how to build tension, though, at this end part. Like, it didn't seem like it was kind of boring with Wolverine, where you're like, any day now, can we please just kill this character and this character, and then we're done? Instead, like, you're building up tension on both ends of the past and future with how do we stop Magneto, and then how do we stop the Sentinels from getting to Wolverine so that he can help stop Magneto. A lot of tension in there.
I really appreciate it. They cut between the past and the future pretty well. Like, especially the moment where Mystique was trying to decide whether or not she was going to shoot the president. I think was it was Mystique shooting. Who was she shooting? She's going to shoot someone.
Peter Dinklage.
Was it the president? Was it Trask?
I think it was Trask.
I can't remember. Anyway, she had her gun pointed at someone.
Because Trask
and they were really
killed a whole bunch of her friends.
Yeah. And there was like a whole 30 seconds of cut to the past, cut to the future, cut to the past, cut to the future, and it's all just her, shaking and looking and like, and there's just and I mean, obviously, it's going to happen because this is a movie and we're almost at the end here, but it's like, okay, I see what they're doing here, and I appreciate the tension that they built during that whole final act, and I think it was well deserved. Obviously, as soon as they mentioned that it's a time travel thing, I'm like, oh, okay, I know where this whole thing's going. It's going to end with a very close call with the people in the real time, and something's going to be happening in the past that'll, save everyone. So I wasn't surprised about any of that. But I appreciated the tension that they were able to build there. Speaking of time travel, though, I don't think we talked about this. What did you think of old Professor X talking with younger Professor X?
I think it was a nice handoff almost between the two characters, right? Because the intention, at least for Fox in this new universe, or at least this new set of actors that they have for these characters that they've had for a while now, it was kind of the handing of the torch. And so you kind of get Patrick Stewart basically telling, I forgot his name, James McAvoy. I need this big cheat sheet in front of me to keep track of all these characters.
Is that the character's name or the actor's name?
Kind of.
James McAvoy.
James McAvoy is Charles Xavier in the past, and Patrick Stewart is Charles Xavier in the future.
The young one. Okay, got it. Sorry.
Yeah, but it's nice handing of the torch, and basically Charles telling Charles, hey, you have to have hope again. You can't not have hope, because if you don't have hope, then we lose. And we don't want that, because we're the same person.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was a nice touching scene. It was a nice reflection of oneself in a way. Of like, hey, things are bad right now, but they'll get better. You just have to keep on going.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of going the darker route. What did you think of Magneto just destroying Logan with the amount of rebar that he puts in him at the end?
Bruh. I was like, as I guess as it was happening, and I think he was on the ground when it started like going through him and through his legs, and then he kind of like lifted him up, so he was floating in the air.
And he doesn't have the metal skeleton yet, so that was all just flesh and bone that the rebar is going through. It was just painful to watch. Again, I watch that scene,
I definitely had but I had that many times through this movie. I was like, ugh, I don't like these movies. Finish it up, hurry.
And then they just throw him into the river.
Into the ocean, or the river, yeah. It's like, yeah, that kind of felt convoluted or whatever. And I guess I don't really understand how he got the rebar out. Like, obviously he has infinite healing factor, but if the rebar is still in him, how can he heal?
He was also in the water for like 30 minutes, basically, for
exactly right.
As soon as he went to the water, like I started kind of counting in my head, and I lost count or track. Because of course you had all the cuts and all the cool scenes, but I'm like, Logan's been in the water for like at least 20 minutes. How is he gonna get out of this or like live? And of course they kind of are just like, well, Stryker gets him out of the water. Who's not Stryker?
Magic.
Right?
What?
Did you watch the end scene, or not the end scene, but the kind of at the very end where you've
was there end credits?
There was an end credits. I don't know if it even made sense.
I didn't watch the end credits.
We can discuss it later.
I was
it literally
too tired.
Ties into, it ties into the next movie that is in the
the
next one that we'll watch most likely. But so there's the end scene of the movie where they fish Logan out of the water, and it cuts to kind of like, it's Stryker who got him out of the water, so Stryker's now getting experiments on him.
Who is Stryker? I'm getting lost here. Who's Stryker?
Okay, remember in X-Men Origins,
I know he's the
team of people.
X-Men Origins.
So
yes.
X-Men...
Okay. The guy who was trying to build the Ryan Reynolds guy.
Yeah, and then the way he built the Ryan Reynolds Deadpool, is first he experimented on Logan to make sure that he can put metal into someone's bones to make him super strong, I guess.
Huh. Interesting.
But yeah, that's Stryker. So Stryker's kind of like the nice constant in this movie in terms of like, or maybe not nice constant, but he's the looming, not really depression, but the looming future for Wolverine, or the looming past, is this dude who provided so much pain and torture to him. And finally he gets to him at the end of the movie, but then it turns out he's got yellow eyes, which means he's not Stryker, he's Mystique.
Yeah, he's Mystique. That kind of reveal is always fun when it's like close up on a character and you're like, oh no, it's the bad guy, but it's actually Mystique. How does Mystique change her height? That was kind of a funny scene where she was in the vault. Mystique was in the vault reading the autopsy reports, and the receptionist or whoever, assistant lady, was like walking up, Mr. Trask? And she was like, 1 minute. And as she like turned around, it was the shorter guy, and that got me thinking, like, how does she? Okay, I get like the changing the skin and able to change what your skin clothes look like and stuff. Like, I can get that, but like, how does she do the size and like the weight and stuff? Like, is the weight and the size difference?
I'm surprised that you brought this up now, because that was literally the first scene, right, in First Class, or maybe close to the first scene, where you've got her raiding the refrigerator as Charles's mom. And then she transforms into the
okay, duh. Yeah, okay. Jeez. I guess I didn't notice it until it was, like, right in front of me like that.
Well, it was like a very... Yeah. I mean, I don't know. She's able to change herself. I don't know. If you think of her as a giant glob of flubber, I guess that makes sense. For those who get the reference, thank you for having some of that childhood magic that was my childhood.
Yes.
So maybe she's just a whole bunch
Not
of...
Professor X, the absent-minded professor. Most important professor in the world.
Oh my god. Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I think that's kind of her superpower that makes her so powerful, right? She's able to transform into any... I don't know if she could transform to any animal, but she could transform into any human, which is pretty neat. So I don't know. Maybe her spine extends really quickly, but it doesn't hurt her because of reasons.
Yeah. Sorry. I clicked the wrong button.
Nick always clicking the wrong buttons right here.
Hopefully
and then I guess
delete the show.
I kind of wanted to get your reaction to the end scene where Logan is back at the mansion, in which I guess from your point of view he's never been to the mansion. But in this is basically his coming home, where a lot of like basically every single X-Men movie in the original trilogy was Logan in the mansion. And so now he's kind of back, and you get to see old Beast, in which you're like, hey, it's Beast, and then you get to see all the other characters, and you get to see Jean Grey again, which you're like, oh no, it's the red hair lady again.
Was that the lady he woke up in bed with? Who is that lady? I was confused because I can't keep all of these things straight. I'm really sorry. I know these are dumb
Jean
questions.
Grey was the haunting past that Logan had in the last X-Men movie that we watched. X-Men.
Yeah, was that the lady that he woke up next to in this movie at the end?
He didn't wake up to any woman right next to him at the end of this movie. No, he woke up and then he opened the door and there was a kid getting out to go to class, and then he walks down the hallway and sees Beast, and then he goes down the stairway and then sees I think Storm, and then you get Scott Summers and Jean Grey in the doorway of Professor X's study. But
interesting.
Well, there we go. Explain the whole scene.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
I kind of like the end
I was really confused.
Where,
I was like, you asked what I was thinking of the end scene. I was 100% confused. I was like, okay, I guess we're better now, and we're in the better version of the future, which I guess is this. So, yay! I have no idea what's going on.
But I like how they ended it,
is that
right?
the
They
blue
were
guy?
Just like, and this was it to the end. It was kind of like Logan's like, hold on, what's going on? I just woke up, and then Charles is like, what are you talking about? You've been here this whole time. He's like, well, no, the last time I recall is being thrown into the river.
And
then Charles is like,
1973.
oh, you're back. Oh. Welcome back, friend. Here, I guess I'll explain history to you, since you have to do a history class sometime soon, since apparently he's the history teacher. Yeah. But yeah. No.
That's confusing. I don't want to think about that. I will say, it is good that Logan was the one who went back in time. I think that made a lot of sense. Not only because he's invincible, but when you think of a character that has to live live through hell every day. Like, this guy's been in every war since the 18 somethings, and he's always been this guy who has to see the gory things in life and do the gory things. It makes total sense that he's going to be the only one who remembers the alternate future, where it was absolutely terrible. And I don't know if that's going to come up in other movies, but that has to have some PTSD right there.
I mean, you kind of got it in the
blissfully unaware
glimpse that you got in Logan, right? He was kind of just burnt out, driving a limo.
Yeah.
He's like,
yeah,
I'm done. I'm done living. Please, just kill me now.
Yeah.
One other scene that I wanted to mention as well that I thought was pretty cool is you get Magneto pulling the gun on Mystique in Paris. And Mystique's like, whoa, what are you doing, Eric? And Eric is just like, we have to stop the future from becoming terrible. I need to kill you. She's like, no, you don't. He's like, yeah, I do. And I think you get either Logan or Beast or Xavier tackling him, and the gun falls, but then the gun shoots the bullet, and it goes, and then again, goes out the window, then curves around the window because Mystique jumped out of the window, curves around the window down into her leg.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was a pretty nice addition to this movie, kind of showing how powerful Magneto is. That even if he gets stopped in the middle of shooting someone, he can still shoot them. For some reason, he just didn't go for a killing blow.
Yeah, and if anything, that kind of just provides the what's the word I'm looking for? The power to the future to have her blood sample, right? Because they scrape off some of her blood from the pavement, and he didn't go for that kill shot, which probably would have authorities would have taken the body, and then what's his face would have been able to do whatever experiments he wanted, right? So in a way, it definitely worked out. So I don't know.
Yeah, helped in one way, but then hurt in another because they still get the blood. But apparently, it just didn't make the future bad. Maybe because, of course, I think that was the contingent scene at the end, right? Because they kind of have to show that mutants are good and they're above all this, and you get the scene with Mystique.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of grappling with, do I kill him, do I not kill him? And then decides not to kill him, which then kind of makes mutants a little bit more nicer looking for the typical human rather than some big threat.
Yeah, and I think I think that end newspaper that someone put down or something. I don't know. There's like a newspaper that said "Mutant saves the president" instead of any other headline, and I'm like, man, that is the best way to kind of summarize how all this is going to be viewed by the public in the future, going forward. Instead of it being mutant kills, everybody, the mutants save. Some mutants save the president or whatever.
I find it a bit inaccurate, though, for
cool.
Newspapers, right? Because they usually try to get the dirtiest, most sellable line on the main cover.
Totally, I know,
and so
I know.
Think
no, I did think that
cover
too.
Line would be mutant drops stadium around White House, almost killing president. And then later, in the whole entire, on page 7, after you go to page 7, it's like, oh, but he was saved by some other mutant, so president's fine. We're good. I don't know. Not too accurate for news, as at least we see it here in 2021. Or I guess if you think about World War II.
Well, if it bleeds, it leads, right? Like that's been a saying for decades. So it's nothing new in 2021, but it hasn't gotten much better. Yeah, with everyone wanting the craziest news story out there. Hey, where do you think this is going? I guess I think
I know where this is going.
You probably know. Okay.
I know where this is going.
I'm gonna ask myself, Nick, where do you think this is going?
Yeah, where do you think this is going, Nick? Because I guess you didn't really see the end credit scene of
what
I was hinting at. Do you want me to give you a little bit of a spoiler, or not a spoiler, but at least kind of tell you what the scene was?
No, I want to watch it. Okay. Or, I don't know. It'll make a better show if you tell me. Tell me what's going on here. What did I miss?
Okay, well, we cut to Egypt. Back.
Okay.
Very ancient times Egypt.
Okay, just hearing that, I feel like that's the production company wanting an excuse to send its producer, director, and important cast members to Egypt.
Basically, we cut to Egypt.
Vacation.
We get the formation of the pyramids, where all these pieces of stone are being launched into a pyramid shape, and then you look at who's shaping the pyramids while all these people are chanting ancient words or whatever, and you have some blue person who's wearing a hood who's making the pyramids, and then you kind of cut over to the left, or maybe over his left shoulder you see the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse.
Are you joking?
I'm not joking, that was the scene.
Oh no.
So first of all, you have a mutant who can move things in space.
Time travel, move rocks?
Who can move rocks, and then you have the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse kind of just watching as well. So I guess, I don't know if you looked at the title of the next movie that we're watching, Nick, but it's called X-Men Apocalypse. So if you thought this is kind of the apocalypse in terms of Days of Future Past with Sentinels killing a whole bunch of mutants in the future, we now have some superpowered mutant who is potentially going to be fighting toe-to-toe against Xavier and the X-Men. Gesundheit, good sir.
Thank you. I didn't make a sound, which is important for the audio podcast. No one will get my germs from my sneezing sounds.
So.
Okay, well, it wasn't smooth anymore. Well, good golly, if we get in the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, and the next one is called the Apocalypse, I'm going to get a little bit more worried and slightly more invested into this storyline, because I think that's something we haven't seen yet. The Thanos version in the X-Men universe, where you have the infinitely powered guy going up against everybody else. So I'm excited. I'll be looking forward to that now. I'm really regretting not watching this end
The main
scene.
villain is also played by the great Oscar Isaac, who you might remember from the cult classic, everyone's favorite Star Wars movie, Star Wars The Last Jedi. Oscar Isaac was
he Poe Dameron?
X-Wing pilot guy, yeah, Poe Dameron.
Yeah, okay, cool.
He plays the bad guy.
I know who that is.
And I think he does a pretty good job.
Oh, no.
I think he does a good job in this. But
cool.
yeah, we'll review that next time. Where do you think we're kind of going, I guess, then, Nick, barring kind of some of the the teaser that I just exploited all over the place on this podcast? Like,
well,
what do you kind of want to see with the X-Men at this point? Because you've already seen them kind of grow as a team and then split at the end, and then grow kind of as a team again, but more as like separate characters kind of coming together as a broken team. What do you expect from the X-Men, and then also Logan?
Yeah, looking at our list here, we're coming up at the end of all of the X-Men ones that, at least X-Men branded ones. We have the Apocalypse and then Logan, and then we'll do Deadpool later. So I know those are kind of a little bit different. So I guess I'm kind of looking forward to the major climax. I kind of already have a taste for what Logan is. I did see the first half of Logan once upon a time. So I know somehow Logan is going to... Logan. Wolverine is going to be like a broken down character who has nothing to live for, and Professor X is going to be taking all of the blame for something very bad that happened. So I'm kind of curious, but at the end of the day, the world doesn't seem like totally screwed up like it was in this future timeline. So I guess I don't really know exactly what I'm expecting from this apocalypse, but I would guess that something goes down, and Logan ends up wanting to quit being an immortal being, basically. And so something happens. Something happens to some people at some point in time. That is my prediction for the next movie. That's how you know it's going to be accurate.
You hit the nail on the head. How did you know? It's like you watched this movie in advance.
You know, maybe I am a week ahead and just pretending not to know anything. Big brain.
It's just wow.
Where do you think this is all going, though, in terms of the characters? Do you think we'll see any monsters?
Monsters?
We can have them incorporate things?
Man, you are shoveling this through like a choo-choo train through a very annoyed toddler who doesn't want to eat breakfast. Man. Alrighty, yeah. So as Nick said, the next movie that we're watching is some incorporated monsters. Gosh dang it. Yeah, we're watching Monsters, Inc. If you want to watch and then kind of get fresh in the mind of what movie we're reviewing, you're more than happy to join us and get our thoughts on it. But otherwise, just going to end it here. I've been Model Y Mike, or however you want to call me, as long as it's a nice name.
The cool guy.
The cool guy. The guy who wears hats all the time. Yeah, I've been...
You wear 100% more hats than I do.
I've been Mike. You've been Nick Good Sir. Please feel free
Nick Goodstir. That's my whole name. All right, we need to end this.
All right. Have a good morning /evening /night, everyone. Take care.